Welcome to Life Beyond B.S, where we ditch the belief systems and the bullshit and get real about life. Here it's about awareness, choice, and creating joy that actually lasts. No perfection, just honest talk and powerful change. I'm your host, Heather McNally, and let's get into it. Before we begin today's episode, I want to gently let you know that this conversation includes discussion about suicide and grief. Please listen with care. If this topic feels tender for you, take breaks as needed. And if you are struggling or are in crisis, please reach out for support. In the US, you can call or text 988. You matter. Your life matters, and help is available. Hi, friends, and welcome back to Life Beyond B.S, where we go beyond the belief systems and, the bullshit that holds you back in life. I'm Heather McNally, your host for the show, and today I'm joined by an incredibly beautiful light in this world. Her name is Jan Reed. Jan Reed is a transformational life coach, E4 spiritual psychology coach, coach for Spiral Up, and retired teacher of more than 30 years. After the devastating loss of her husband to suicide, Jan stepped into a profound healing journey that awakened her deeper purpose. Drawing on decades of experience guiding others, combined with trauma-informed spiritual psychology and faith-based principles, Jan now helps women move through grief, emotional pain, and life transitions with clarity, courage, and divine alignment. Her work is both deeply compassionate and grounded in wisdom earned through lived experience. Jan, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm really excited to be here, Heather. This
Thank
is
you.
great. I was real excited when you asked me to be on your podcast.
Thank you
That
so
was
much. You truly are a light in the world. I just want you to tell everybody a little bit about who you are at your heart and soul level.
I keep choosing kind of the same word because I choose a word every year, but I always come back to the word fun because
Mm,
I really feel that when you're having fun, you are in a high vibration. You're in a good place. And even as an educator, I made sure that happened in my classroom because I want when you're having fun, that loosens up that prefrontal cortex, and these kids then are able to think and reason. And that right there, the other piece was I wanted them to feel safe.
mm,
And if you're not feeling safe, you're not going to be able to think properly. You're not in a good space. So that's kind of my mantra. So it's kind of like, am I having fun? I
mhm,
ask myself that a lot of the time. But the other piece is just love of people. I love getting to know people. And to me, relationships are super important. And I really have found I am surrounded by amazing people.
mm,
And I'm like, wow, I'm really drawing amazing people to me. And I'm excited about that because that's what relationships, I don't know, there's something about that matching up when you just really are, you just connect. And there's something about connection. And I think that's part of it. I think fun and love are my two main words. They really
mhm,
are. So I always add fun, but I always have another word. But fun leads me. And I even chose that word the year my husband passed.
mm,
And, people were like, that's your word. I'm like, yeah, I got to keep that in mind. Life
mhm.
is going on, and I'm going to have fun while I'm at it. Joy. I think that's my other word. Yeah.
That's amazing. And like I just said, you are light. And now we can totally see why. I think that you have to have fun in life. If you're not having fun in life, you're not having laughter, you're not having connection and joy. Are you living? Are you really living? And so, what a fun word. I think that's an incredible word. It's probably the best word I've heard that people choose for the year. My word this year is expansion, but now I think fun might have to be next year because you have to have fun. And I always say that I have a childlike existence in my life. I kind of feel like I have a duality, like where I can be very serious and very grounded, but also I'm curious. I want to know people just like you said. And maybe that's why we connect so well, is because we're
So
both so curious about people and love connecting. And connection is one of the six pillars of a healthy brain. So it's
yeah,
incredibly important.
I'm on
Love.
the right track.
Yes, absolutely. You're doing it right.
Yeah,
So,
and one other piece too,
yeah.
and I made this decision long ago, young at heart. I thought,
Mm,
just because the numbers are saying I'm old, Here, I'm not. I
Mhm.
am still that kid who, and that goes with fun. Because really,
Absolutely.
that's what kids want. They want to have fun.
And it's so funny because if you think about when you're young, I remember when I turned 25 and for some reason it struck me. I was like, I'm a quarter century. I'm so old. And you'd look at people who are older and think, oh my God, I'm never going to get there. Like, I'm so young. Now I'm 53 and I look back and I hear people saying like, ah, you're so old. And I think to myself, you know what? I'm happier than I've ever been. I have joy. I have wisdom. I have connections and experiences that make me in a whole different place. And so I so respect that. And it's hard to explain that to somebody who's younger to understand it, to truly embrace that and understand it. But
Yeah,
it's a beautiful thing to age, really. And
it
especially if
really
you
is.
keep
It's a
that young at heart.
gift.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Especially
gift,
if you keep
really.
the
I
young at heart.
celebrate my birthday
Hmm.
actually kind of all year simply because it's like I get to have another year of life. How fun is that? And that, because some people are like, oh, I'm getting this old. And I'm kind of like, I get to be this old. So
Hmm.
I get to
Yep.
be. And look at
Yeah.
the impact I can make still, no matter
Right.
how old I am. I throw that out.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
really do.
absolutely. And your spirit comes through as young.
Mm,
So age in that respect does not matter.
mm,
I love making friends and connecting with people. And I will connect with people that are 20 and 30 years younger than me, and then
mm.
20 and 30 years older than me. And I love that I can experience all of their joy, all of their wisdom, all of the youth, all of the grace and the choices that people have made. It's just such a beautiful thing.
It is.
All
Yeah,
right, so
I'm in
let's
a
talk
happy
about
place.
you teaching. And
Hmm.
I just think this is another connection for us because my mom was an elementary school teacher her whole career. That was my original intention in my career to be a school teacher. Long story short, I transferred schools and things got messed up, and I ended up becoming a psychology major. But long term, here I am working on educating myself still, but also trying to educate other people. Education is so incredibly important. So tell me a little bit about your career and what you experienced, who you taught, what you loved about it.
Well, actually, originally went to college to be in health recreation and physical education. And I changed my mind and I was kind of going towards child development and social work. And then when I started, and no offense to social workers, I think they're amazing, but I realized that was not for me. It wasn't a good fit. So I quit school with
Mhm.
a quarter to go or a semester. And my parents were a little upset, but I was engaged at the time, so I got married, had a couple kids, but I always knew I was going to go back to school. And I did go back, and that worked out really well for me. I became an elementary teacher, and I found my spot. I mean, I I loved those kids. That was
Mhm.
the best part. And I remember when I got the job, and I was so excited. I'm like, wow, I get to, of course you're terrified on that very first day. But it was still amazing. But I got to make a difference in children's lives. And the beauty of it is I wanted them to feel free to make a mistake in the classroom. And we talked about that because I'd make mistakes and they'd go, Mrs. Reed, you made a mistake. I go, yeah, what have I learned from it? I can go on. And I wanted them to know that a mistake wasn't a bad thing. It was just a sign that there's something else that we need to learn. And I hope that helped them feel safe in my classroom, knowing it's okay to do that. And then the other piece too is developmentally, first and second graders, because that was the grade I taught, I had to keep that in mind. It was hands-on experience as much as I could do within my classroom. And I found that it worked very well. I just loved for them, and here's that word again, to have fun.
Mhm.
Because when they're having fun, that prefrontal cortex opens up and they're eager to learn. They're not afraid, they're in a safe space. And that made all the difference. I also was fortunate. I was on amazing teacher teams and we worked so well together. And I loved that. When we'd get together and come up with an idea, it was like, it
Mhm.
was so cool because we got to make a difference in kids' lives. I taught for 30 plus years, and I also taught some preschool at one time. And I also worked with fifth and sixth graders for summer school and after school help and stuff. But when I retired, I realized I was ready.
Mhm.
And as that went on, I, I was like, I'm going to be retiring next year. And I thought, what am I going to do with my life? I knew I wasn't done. I loved going out and having the freedom to have coffee with my friends and all that. But I thought, I feel like there's still something there. So I,
Mm.
I Googled jobs for retired teachers and up pops life coach. And I'd heard of life coach, but I didn't really know what it was. So I clicked on that. And the next thing you know, I'm heading to LA for this Dream Builder program. And it changed my life. It
Mm.
was just amazing. All of a sudden, it was like I was on fire with joy and happiness because of what I'd learned from this. And that's when I signed up to be a life coach. And
That-
it was so exciting. I loved it.
mm.
So I got to teach again in a whole
Mhm.
different way as a coach because coach and teacher, same, in a
Hand
little.
in hand,
Yep.
yes.
Yes. I worked with older people, but
Hmm.
that was a true moment for me. And it really did change my life
Yeah,
totally.
yeah. To be lit up like that is
Mm.
really, I think a lot of people lack that in their lives.
Yeah.
And to be able to find that and actually be able to pursue a career in what your purpose is
Yeah.
just one of the most incredible things that anybody can experience.
Yes.
I want to talk about the safety that you created for your students because I know you can talk about the safety you create for your clients as well. And that's a huge part of coaching
Yeah.
is creating safety. So I think it's so incredible to create safety for the children like that because you don't know where they're coming from. You may have an
No.
idea as the teacher, you may get some information. These days, I think they give a lot more information about things like that, but creating the safety for children to be able to explore, to be able to question, to be able to fail and
Yes.
do it again is so incredibly important. So I think that that's a beautiful thing because, like I said, you don't know where they're coming from, where maybe failure is not an option at home, or maybe they don't get somebody who's able to be with them all the time because they may have a single mom or dad who's working two or three jobs just to get by, and they don't have the ability physically to be there and give them the same attention that they would get. You don't know if they have a lack of food, like you have no idea what they're coming from, or maybe you
No.
have a little bit of an idea. So creating that safety in that environment gives them not only the ability to make mistakes and fail and choose again, or question things, or have fun and make those connections, which is all such important stuff, but
Yeah.
also the safety to come to school and look forward to it. So
Yes.
that's amazing. So tell me a little bit about how you created safety for them and then how now you create safety for your clients.
It really comes down to, once again, keeping that word fun in mind because that's where people feel they're in a higher vibration, And as
Mhm.
I speak about that, there's an emotional scale, and there's way down here, which is grief,
Mhm.
sadness, all that, and then way up here, which is joy and happiness. And if you're having fun, you're usually up here. And that's when you are connected to the
Mhm.
power within you. And
Mhm.
not everybody knows that, but when they discover that they have more power than they ever thought. And that was one thing I really wanted to get across to these kids is that they are in control of their lives. But the safety piece is, we turn making a mistake or failure into something like we're still learning. What's another way to look at it? It's telling us not this way. We can go this way.
Mhm.
Mistakes are to learn from. They are not a bad thing. And
Right.
when they keep that in mind, that's the hard part. And
Mhm.
and that's the same thing when I coach. So many people think if something's bad, it's bad. But
Mhm.
we can change how we think about the bad thing because I have found, and that's part of this journey I've been on, I have found that that leads to that the bad often opens the door to good
Mhm.
because it might be a door closing,
Yeah.
and that door's closing for a reason. And it's hard to see it at the time. It's scary. It's sad. It's like, now what? Like you lose a job or
Mhm.
you're divorced or whatever it might be, and possibly a death. And
Mhm.
it's kind of like, oh, it's a scary place. But if you say, okay, I can move through this, and I'm saying through it because when I think it's happening to me, then I become the victim.
Mhm.
And I really struggle with being a victim because I want to be the victor because I know that personally I have that control in my life. Because the only person I can control is me. I cannot control anything outside of me. And when I gave up doing that, that's when the light really came on. And I really helped people find that
Mhm.
moment, that time. It's how we perceive things. And
Mhm.
we get to choose.
Right.
We get to choose. It's
Yes.
our decision. And when you realize that everything you think or your thoughts, they become things.
Mhm.
So what are you creating because of your thoughts become
Right.
things? And that is pretty exciting.
It's so powerful. And it's
Yeah.
all about when you become aware, you have to become aware. Once you become aware, you have the power to do what you want to do from there. And you have the power
Absolutely.
to make your thoughts different. You have the power to choose differently. You have the power to completely change your life if you want. And that's something that I've done.
Yes.
Um, Going from, I would say, definitely a victim mentality in my earlier life. And I want to say that a couple of the people in my life that were extremely profound in terms of helping shape me and helping me realize that what I was going through in my life as an abuse victim of my father
Yeah.
was that I didn't want that life anymore were teachers for me. My second grade teacher and one of my high school teachers. They just really truly showed me that I didn't have to be who
Yes.
it was that my father was trying to define me as. And
Yes.
so you were really that person for, I'm sure, many, many people being in first and second grade teacher, because that's where they get their belief systems. So you were
Yes.
one of those people that helped create those belief systems in them, and that life can be fun and you get to make mistakes. And I think that's so incredibly beautiful.
Yeah.
So then you transitioned into helping adults
Hmm.
understand that. So tell me a little bit about how you transitioned. You said that it lit you up. How
Yes.
was that transition going from working with children to working with adults and the bigger adult problems that come along in life?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because it's how you perceive where you're at. When kids, little things can be a big, big deal to
Yes.
them.
Mhm.
And even with adults, little things can be a big deal. They don't always know where that came from because a lot of our, and I don't like to use the word trauma, but a lot of our trauma comes from things that we heard or learned or experienced as a child. So I am dealing still with the child in a sense
Mhm.
because they bring that with them
Yes.
and helping them through that trauma, helping them to identify who they really are because they don't always know who they are and that identity. But keeping that is a safe space.
Mhm.
Another word, too, that pops up for me is forgiveness.
Mhm.
When you're forgiving, you're helping almost yourself more than you are anybody else. And when they finally learn to forgive themselves, that's when it really opens a door for them too, because then they're going, oh, they're letting go. And I'm going to say it of all that shit. They're letting
Yeah.
it go.
Yep.
And I'm so grateful that they can do that. And when I see that light come on when I was teaching, when that light would come on, it was like, yeah, gotcha. You're
Mhm.
because my whole piece when I was teaching was I wanted them to love learning. It wasn't
Mhm.
just about all the little mission statements and everything. If they love learning, I've got them. And that's kind of how it is when I work with adults also, is I want them to love themselves enough to open that door so they can learn and keep going. Because if you're not a lifelong learner, you're not
Mhm.
growing and you're
Right.
stuck. You are
Oh,
stuck.
absolutely. That's such a huge thing for me is lifelong learning. I loved school when I was young. I loved college. I worked at a university, so I was able to take courses for free, and I took
Wow.
photography, sociology, criminology, music classes. I took everything I could, and
Yeah.
I had so much fun doing it. And it is sad when people find education daunting because they're not learning what they enjoy.
Right.
When you truly are lit up by what it is that you're learning, you can't get enough. My oldest son didn't finish college because he was not lit up by it, but he
Yeah.
loves to learn. He's always learning and always explaining different things that he learns to me. And I see how passionate he is and I see how
Yeah.
lit up he is. And everybody's got a different path, but you always want to be learning. And that's another one of the six pillars of a healthy brain is new information, novelty, always
Yeah.
learning, always keeping yourself active, your brain active. So
Yes.
that's beautiful. Yeah. And I
Oh,
can see you lit up just talking about this,
oh
which
yeah.
it's funny because you were talking about some things that are a little more serious about trauma, and I'm smiling. And it's because I get lit up by this information. I get lit up by how knowing that I changed myself from going from incredibly unhappy, incredibly miserable, hating myself, truly feeling suicidal
Oh,
to I love my life. I get goosebumps thinking about it. So
oh,
felt kind of
I
weird
just
that I'm
got them
sitting
too.
here smiling when you're talking about trauma, but I get lit up by that too because if I could change from somebody who hated myself to somebody who is lit up by all this and lit up by life, what you're saying is just hitting home.
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? When you
Yeah.
really kind of find that space in yourself and realize that you are love. And that's what it's all about. Because when you think about it, God, source, that's love. And when you
Hmm.
come from that space instead of fear,
Hmm.
wow, it's so powerful. It
Yeah.
just switches something in your brain, in your thinking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. I'm sitting here smiling when you're talking about trauma,
yeah.
and I'm thinking, I hope nobody misreads this because
Well,
it's speaking to me because
but
I went
yeah,
from this to this, and that's why I do what I do now, because
exactly.
if I could do it, anybody can do it. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that is so beautiful is that we can show people that.
And I've had a chance to see your growth, and that
Mm.
really lights me up
Yeah.
because it's like, look at you, Heather. I see where you came from, and that is the best thing, is seeing people at their best and
Right.
being happy.
Right.
I think that's a big word because when you come from joy and happiness, good things happen,
Absolutely.
even if it seems bad.
And that's the thing. We have to experience life as it comes, right? And we have to
Yes,
take those experiences and choose how
yes,
we're going to handle it. And so to be able to look at something and say, my life is joyous, my life is happy, that doesn't mean bad things don't happen. That doesn't mean that we
exactly.
don't have bad days or we wake up maybe not having slept enough and you're like, ugh, I don't want to get up, but you do it. It's making choices. We all have tough times and
We
we
do.
all have those moments. You can't live there. You can't put
Mm-mm.
down your roots in that
Can't.
moment. You have to experience it.
We
And like you
can't.
said at one point, take for what you can get from that, learn from that, and
Yes.
grow from that. You've been a life coach for a number of years, but you
Yeah.
also
8
have
years.
had the experience of losing your husband to suicide. So,
I
do you want
have.
to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I will. It was interesting. 2023 was started out really good, but I lost my godmother, my mom's sister.
Mhm.
She passed in July of that year, and she had diabetes and was really suffering. So it was kind of a blessing. Then my mom, unexpectedly, end of August, just dropped,
Wow.
and was gone. And she was vital and healthy, and everything was going so well. So that just shook me up.
Mhm.
I was like, wow. And 6 weeks later, my husband took his life. And I knew he wasn't doing well. He'd had some mental illnesses, and he wasn't really good at expressing his feelings or sharing them. He got help one time, but he said, oh, it didn't really work, didn't really help. So he wouldn't go back and get help. And I knew he was hurting, but I didn't know how bad it was. On top of that, he was a hoarder.
Mhm.
And that's something that, and I'm going to say both of us tried to hide because
Mhm.
it seems like a bad thing. And we had a 3-car garage that was jam-packed full. And oh my gosh, I was able to get my car in because I told him, if my car doesn't fit in there, you're telling me you don't want me here. And he
Mhm.
always kept a space for me. And then our basement, and we have a big house, also was full.
Mhm.
And so we lived with that. But I made sure that other 2 floors stayed pretty decent. That was kind of like, okay, that's your space because he couldn't do anything about it. And that's a lot of times a perfectionist thing,
Mhm.
OCD.
Mhm.
And I don't know, but one day I was at a meeting, come home, and there all of a sudden I'm like, huh, he's not home. And I was kind of surprised, but I figured, oh, maybe he's went to some athletic event. He loved watching the kids' sports because he was a bus driver when
Mhm.
he retired from firefighting. And I couldn't find him. And so I was like, okay, where is Mickey? So I called my daughter and she said he wasn't there. And I only lived probably 15 minutes from her. And then I found the note and it said, went hunting with our dog, Robbie, with a smiley face there. And I was like, okay, it's like 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. And I was worried. So I tried calling the place where he would go. He was allowed to hunt, and I couldn't get hold of his name was Dan. And so I went out looking for him, and my daughter also did, and couldn't find him. And it was probably around midnight by that time. And I told my daughter, I'm going to go home and just call 911. So I did. And she says, well, I'll meet you at home. And as she was driving to see me, she found his van. And she opens the door, and our dog is in there. And as soon as she said, Robbie's in here, she said, I went, oh no. I thought, heart attack. I thought, accident. And there was a little lingering thing going, did he take his life? So she said, I'm going to look for him. And I said, be careful, hon. And so she says, I found his hat. And I was like, oh, good. And she goes, oh, I see his feet. And she was thinking he'd had a heart attack. She was ready to do some CPR.
Mhm.
And then she started moving her flashlight from her phone up his body, and she could see the gun in his
Mhm.
hands. And she kept going. She said, I wish I hadn't, but I had to. And she said, no, she starts crying and screaming, Mom, he took his life. And I was like, okay. Shock came in
Mhm.
and it kind of settled me. So I said, well, I'm going to call dispatch and let them know. And I'm going to drive out there because I was at home. So she's like, okay. So I told them, I get a call on my way out there, and they said, Mrs. Reed, we need you to go back. We have a deputy and a chaplain at the house to help you. And I said, well, I really want to be with my daughter right now because this is about the living, not
Mhm.
about the dead.
Mhm.
And they said, well, we need her there for a while. So they kept her there and they came in, the super sweet as much as they could, knowing that I was going through a really crisis. And finally, they released Kelly and we met at my house. And by then it was 3 o'clock in the morning. And she went ended up going home and I was supposed to go with her. I told the officer I would, but I was like, I'm not going to. I'm going to just stay here. And which was good. And then I had to make all the phone calls the next day. And that's when all of a sudden it was like, boom, my life changed.
Mhm.
And the whole time, fortunately, I think shock is a blessing
Mhm.
because I could still function, but
Mhm.
I didn't have to take it all in at that time, even though I knew. And that was okay with me. I was like, no, this is a good spot. I accepted that he had passed, but I really struggled with how he had passed, that
Mhm.
this beautiful man would take his life. And Mickey, he was so loved by so many people. And he just, how do I say it? Before the wake, I went upstairs to my room and I just kind of did a meditation, helping myself. Who do I get to be in this process? Who do I get to be during this wake?
Mhm.
And because I knew we're going to have a lot of people there, and there were. I mean, we're figuring 700 to 800 people showed up, and that was tough. But
Mhm.
also, what we discovered is we were going through this. I had been in a space where I am going to be celebrating my husband as we go through this. I don't want him to be remembered
Mhm.
for how he died, but how he lived.
Mhm.
And so that just stayed with me as we were going through that. And my son, at the end, he goes, Mom, he goes, I was just dreading this so much. And he goes, but all these people love Dad.
Mhm.
And it was beautiful. He goes, I feel energized. I said, I know, so do I. And here's the cool thing. We had made a playlist that was playing during this whole thing, but because there were so many people there, you couldn't really hear it.
Mhm.
So after everybody left, the funeral director, she looks at me And I knew exactly what she was going to do. She went over to where we had the music going, and she turned on that song that we definitely had to have in there. It was "Hey Mickey, You're So Fine. You're
Mm-hmm.
so fine, you blow my mind." So it was just family, and there's quite a big family there. And as soon as that came on, we started dancing
Mm.
and jumping up and down. We're looking at the videos that were going on, and it was like, okay, that's when I kind of was able to release a lot of this pain, even though I knew it was going to rise up constantly, which it did. And another thing too is the support we had. I'm going to just say that was beautiful. And I had asked my people were saying, what can I do to help? And because my husband was a hoarder, we also had a whole bunch of stuff out in our driveway in this one section of it. And I just said, could we just get that moved so we have more space for people to park? And they saw that, and then the garage door opened. And they're like, oh my gosh. All of a
Mm.
sudden, they said, can we clean this out for you? And I was like, yes, because
Mm.
I don't know what I would have done. So we got that. It took 3.5 days, but it got cleaned out. And the basement, we did a little bit, but I said, let's just wait on that and we can do that. But anyway, because of that, I'm gonna start here. My garage door was not going down. And this was approaching November now, because this happened in October. And I was like, okay, dang. So I'd run into the house, run to the garage. I'd hold the button down so it'd go down, run through the house, go out so I could get in the car and have my garage door down when I left. And I thought, okay, that night I went to bed and I'm like, I've got to ask Steve, which is my husband's cousin. He was coming over the next day, to fix my garage. So I go to bed thinking that, and I wake up in the morning. It's like, oh yeah, the garage door. And all of a sudden, I get this download. I heard Mickey, and he said, check the sensors. And I started laughing and crying at the same time because I'm like, oh my gosh, there you are. You're
Mm.
still here. You're
Mhm.
supporting me. And it was so reassuring because Mickey was Mr. Fix It. He could fix anything. He built two of the houses that we've lived in.
Wow.
He was a very talented man.
Mm.
And that was kind of like a door opening for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's gone physically, but he's still here with me spiritually.
Mhm.
And I was kind of surprised because I know when I'm in that lower vibration, but apparently at that time I wasn't, because then he was able to do that. And
Mhm.
I knew it was him. I could hear, and he's got a very distinct voice. And I was like, there you are.
Mm.
So after that, I signed up with Lachelle Weemy and her Spiral Up program because she and I are very good friends, and I've
Mm.
coached her and she's coached me.
Mhm.
And that was a blessing because I really had a lot of help from her. And I went on a retreat to Costa Rica with her. And that's where a lot of amazing things happened. I did get to see my husband again and my mother that came up, and that was beautiful. I
Mm.
just, I had a lot of clearing there. And
Mhm.
this was in February, and my husband passed in October. So the timing of it was really, really good. Another thing happened too, as I'm really afraid of heights, but Lachelle often will have like an event the day before if we want to go on it. And I said, okay, it was zip lining. And I was like, what am I going to do? I don't like heights, but I wanted to experience it. So one of the other pieces was we went to this waterfall we got to see. And we knew we'd be able to swim in it. Well, we found out that in order to swim in it, you had to jump off this 20-foot cliff. And I'm going, ooh. So I'm like, well, I'm here for experience. And Lachelle goes, okay, Jan, it's your turn. And I found out later it was because she wasn't ready because she's afraid of heights too. So I stood there and I thought, well, I can stand here and be terrified, or I can just do it.
Mhm.
So I counted to three and I jumped. And I was like, okay, that was a big deal for me because I
Mhm.
realized that I have more power than I thought and I can do the big things. So that
Yeah.
was kind of another blessing there. But the next step that I did was because of my life coaching. Within the life coaching programs that I had, one was called Standing Firm When Your World is Shaking. And I thought, okay, I've gone over this, but I'm going to be seeing it in a whole different way now. And
Mhm.
that right there, it was said, we're going to have challenges. We're going to have bad things, or so we think, happen in our life.
Mhm.
And it's kind of how you decide to look at it. And they said, you have to go through it or it's going to just keep coming up. You're going to keep having that same loop. And I knew that. I knew I had to go through it. And there was a part of me that was like, oh God, it's going to be painful. It's going to be hard because I was suppressing emotions big time. That helped me a lot because I knew I couldn't pitch a tent there and stay
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Says that's almost more painful. And I found myself also wanting to be safe and wanting to be comfortable. And at that time, that's exactly what I needed. And
Mm-hmm.
I accepted that. But after a while, that safety and comfort got to be like a little prison
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't growing, I wasn't moving on. And I was kind of like, oh, am I ready for this? Can I move on? And I just kept thinking, let's deal with those emotions. And I had started this trauma releasing training at that right around that time. Well, it was later, but still it helped me. And I started, we'd practice on each other on how to help each other. And I released a lot of stuff there. And it also opened that door, like I'm suppressing way more than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started allowing those things to come up, I had to go through it. I could not suppress it anymore.
Yeah.
So I remember I was thinking I was doing pretty well, and I got up. And one thing I do too, and I did throughout this, was every time I'd wake up in the morning, sometimes I'd get this like whoosh, feeling of dread,
Mm-hmm.
pain, and I'd be like, okay, but who do I get to be today?
Mm-hmm.
That was a decision I made. It was a choice. Who do I get to be today? And I had to do that sometimes throughout the day, all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
once I made that, I'd be like, oh, I get to be this person who lifts myself up and other people. I get to have a great day. I just would put that out there. And so here I'd gone through that and I'm heading down the steps. And it was kind of like I could see the spot where Mick used to sit a lot. As I went down the steps, and it just hit me, and I just started bawling out of nowhere. I'm like, whoa, where did this
Mm-hmm.
come from? And then I thought, you know what? It's a sign. That was a sign that I needed to really release. And I kind of what I call took the day off. I kind of turned off all the stuff, didn't answer the door, stayed at home, but I allowed myself to feel and
Mm.
get through this.
Yeah.
And also with the help of life coaching and chaplains and all the other stuff, it
Mhm.
was a combination of things. But the one thing that I knew I had was I got to decide how the rest of my life was going to be. And that right there is such a freeing thing because I didn't want to hold myself back. And it was easy to go back to that dang comfort zone because it was
Mhm.
like, I don't have to think about this. I can
Yep.
just sit there and I can watch a whole series. But that was not a fun place. After a while, I'm like, it's uncomfortable. So I was able to move on.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say move on, move through it.
Mm-hmm.
Am I still done with that? No, it still rises up. But
Yeah.
now I'm aware, much more aware, and I
Mm-hmm.
know how I have the tools to take care of myself.
Yeah.
And that also has led to me becoming more of a, I don't want to call it grief, a coach for people who have had loss in their lives.
Yeah.
And that doesn't just mean death, as I probably said. It
Right.
also could mean divorce. It could mean loss of a job, a breakup, even
Mm-hmm.
losing something that's very important to you.
I would
Because
say even when your kids move out of the house and you become an empty nester because it's
yes,
a really significant change because like for me, my children are 23 and 19. So
yeah,
my 19-year-old is in his sophomore year in school. And it was kind of like, all right, my older son had already moved out. My younger son was still home. They're 4 years apart. So when one was graduating high school, one was finishing eighth grade. So I said,
yeah.
I still have 4 more years. Well, those 4 years flew by. And then he goes off to, I live in Massachusetts, he's in Michigan now. So both of the boys are in different states. And I'm like, oh, okay. So the children that I wanted so bad, now I've had them and now they're adults. They're
Yeah.
moved out of the house. My life is changing because now I'm an empty nester and I'm in a new part of my life. I'm 53 years old. More than half of my life is over. And
Yeah.
it's a wild thing to think about. And
Yeah.
all these transitions, all the, I lost my mom, like
Mhm.
every piece of things that happen in your life, it's a new place to be. And it's like you said, you didn't want to pitch the tent. I don't want to put roots in that. I don't want to stay there because, okay, so I could look at it as more than half of my life is over and I'm depressed and oh my God, I'm getting old and I can't. Or I could look at it and say, I started a business at 50 and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm just going up from here and I'm living my life and I'm having more experiences. And it's definitely a huge life lesson is that life is the journey of every moment. It's not when I get this, when this happens, when I get over the grief, because grief is just a lifelong process and there's
Mhm.
no manual on how to do it. And we need
No.
to live through it, experience it, feel the moments, have the down day, have the experiences where you need to cry. Feeling through it is so important too,
Oh, it is.
because if you don't feel, what are you doing?
You're stuck.
Yeah.
And that was something too, because when you're in your safe comfort zone, you are stuck. And it's
Hmm.
okay for a while. It is a safe place to land. And
Hmm.
I acknowledge that. But when I realized I was doing it way more than I felt comfortable with, I was like, I kind of felt like I was digging myself out of a hole because
Hmm.
I was sitting in this little safe space. And I just remember I even had kind of a dream about it, digging myself out of this hole. And as soon as I stepped out of the hole, I could see the hole going and it was gone. And
Hmm.
I was like, okay, my safety net is gone, but it wasn't. I was safe all the time. I
Hmm.
just hadn't realized that. And that's interesting because Mick had shown up for me in different ways, but he told me I'm safe, I'm protected, and to just do it.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay. And first of all, I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do? I didn't know what that meant. I do now. But safe and protected, I was like, yeah, okay. I'm feeling kind of safe and protected, but now I really understand what that meant.
Hmm.
You had it all here inside. And I
Hmm.
had to and acknowledge that the power was within me.
Hmm.
And that part of me was still strong, beautiful, and full of love. It was great. And
Yeah.
when I accepted all that, I was like, okay. I was like, I found myself again.
Hmm.
Found that part of me because identity is such a huge part of it. When you have a loss, you say, who am I now? Because, like
Hmm.
you said about being the mom, all of a
Hmm.
sudden it's a different role as a mom. And I love working with my adult children.
Hmm.
They're amazing. And I learn a lot from them. And, sometimes they look at me sideways like, okay, mom, right? And I just go,
And that's
and
so beautiful because I think it's so important to learn. Yes, they're younger, but they have a different wisdom at their age, at
yes,
their age at a different time in life than when we were at their age at a different time in life.
oh,
And we
yes.
can all learn from each other. Everybody has wisdom and knowledge to
Yes.
share.
And I'm very grateful for that because my daughter is also a life coach
Hmm.
and my son has been coached by me. So
Hmm.
we all have that awareness, which is such a supportive thing. I have four grandchildren, and if I want joy, all I have to do is think about them because they make me laugh. My daughter-in-law sent pictures of my grandson who is 3 months old, and
Oh.
oh my gosh, the chubby cheeks. So I just look for that joy in those little places too,
Mhm.
because it can be something as simple as just seeing a flower, the one flower
Yes.
that just happens to be blooming,
Yes.
or just watching birds. My husband was a big bird man, and he has
Ah,
shown
okay.
up to me as a bird many,
Ah,
many times. And he has told me, he says, no, I sent that to you.
yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
reason. And I'm like, okay, thank
I
you.
have had that too with
Yes,
birds and my mom, literally talking to my mom, saying, I love you,
yes,
I miss you, and oh, remember this? And
yeah,
all of a sudden, a cardinal, which everybody says cardinals are the birds from heaven, but my mom absolutely was obsessed with cardinals.
yeah,
And so every time, and I'm like, thank you, mom. I look at that. And it's funny that you say it's finding the joy in everything. I've been saying this a while now. I find seeing a hummingbird coming to my hummingbird feeder
yes,
just as exciting as, oh, we're going on a trip.
yeah,
When you can say that, when you can look at pieces like that, look at your grandchild who, the chubby cheeks, and
yes,
find the joy in those things,
yeah,
that's when you know that you're living and truly experiencing
yeah,
joy in your life.
yeah. It's everywhere. Sometimes I'll be in that busy mode and I'll be driving my car and I'll be like, you know what? Take a deep breath and
Mhm.
just as I'm driving, I look around and I'm like, oh my gosh, I never noticed that tree in
Mm,
the middle of nowhere and it's blooming. And I was like, the only tree out there, because it's out in a field.
mm,
And that's another story because the man, he loved Mickey, the guy whose land that Mickey took his life on. He and his wife planted a crabapple tree for us
mm.
and put a little guard thing around it so it'd stay safe. And it was such a beautiful thing for him to do. And I'm going to tell a real quick story about a bird and my husband. And Dan calls me up. He goes, Jan, he goes, the weirdest things happened. He goes, there is this rare owl that's hanging around the field where Mickey passed. And I went, really? And he goes, there's people who like follow birds and birding.
Mhm.
They were excited to see this. So they're driving by on this country road. Anyway, he says, Jan, he goes, I know it's Mick. And I was like, oh my gosh. I didn't know he would have that kind of feeling because you never know who's going to say that.
Right.
Well, then another friend of my husband's who lives not far from there, he was a firefighter with my husband and he was an environmentalist and he came to see this rare bird
Mhm.
and he saw it and he was able to identify it was some kind of a short-eared owl that doesn't
Mhm.
hang around in this part of Minnesota. And I talked to him and he goes, Jan, it was the weirdest thing. He goes, I went and saw this. I drive away and he goes, the bird follows me. This owl follows me to my house, into his farm, and he's
Wow.
sitting on a post. And he just kind of was looking at him and he goes, I knew it was Mickey. And I'm like, yes, of course it was. So he
Mhm.
said the bird eventually flew back. So I was like, okay, I got to go see this bird.
Mhm.
So I was like, I hope I get to see it because you don't know. So I drive up and it was dusk. And they said that's a good time to see it. I was a nocturnal. And as soon as I got to the edge of the field, this bird flies up out of the ditch and flies over to the spot where Mickey had taken his life. And I was like, oh, hi, Mick. And I was
Okay.
just happy. So I stopped for a minute, looked at him, looked at the tree because I couldn't see the bird anymore because he was kind of far off. And I thought, well, I better get home. It's getting dark. And as soon as I started the car and started driving home, the bird flew parallel with me to the end of
Wow.
the field. And it was such a joy because,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just
That's
knowing
beautiful.
he's with me. And he said, I did that on purpose. I sent that bird to you. And I'm like, thank you. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful.
I'm a fortunate woman that I have
Yeah.
that connection. And I really would love that for everybody who's had a loss,
Mhm.
knowing that if they can be here instead of down here, that's when it's going to happen. It could be a little thing. It could be a little sign you don't know, but if you are open to it, you will have that connection.
Yep.
And I
You
love
just
that.
have to look for it and be open to it.
Yep.
And speaking of open, I think that this whole conversation is so important because I think that we're in an age of enlightening, an age of awakening, an age of understanding.
Mhm.
And I see it happening.
Yes.
And one of the things that was really important to me as a mom, especially a mom of boys, was that
Yeah.
I was going to raise children that would be emotionally aware, emotionally
Yes.
intelligent, and connected, and be able to be open about things. Because I grew up in an environment of everything had to be secret and closed, and nobody talked about anything, and you weren't allowed to share. I had so many things that I discovered over time that were secrets and lies and things that were not shared. And you can't tell anybody about anything. You don't talk about anything. And I have had deep, deep, deep depression throughout my life and suicidal ideation. And there are definitely chemical reasons for it that run through my family, but there are also very much environmental and
Yeah.
internal reasons.
Yes.
And when you start being able to see things because you're open, because you talk about things, it can completely change your life. And that's what happened for me. And so I think being able to talk about how you're feeling, about the fact that things aren't going well for you, and not just sit and ruminate on it. Because when you sit and ruminate, that's what you're putting into your brain all the time. And that's what your brain is accepting. And that's what your brain is looking around to prove you're right. And I'm sure that, and I don't want to generalize, but I'm sure that your husband being a firefighter, it's kind of seen as that typical manly man kind of job, and
Yep.
you hold things in and you don't talk about it. And he could have been the life of the party. And from what I've talked to you in the past too, he
Oh, you
sounded
was.
like he was, but
Yeah.
holding so much in. So I think this kind of conversation is so important to show people that if you can open yourself up to having conversations and having connections and seeing
Yes.
the beauty in the world and not just sitting on your feelings and holding them in and feeling like you're a failure if you feel bad. You're a failure if you have depression, or failure if you have mental health problems. That's not the case. Just like somebody who has diabetes or cancer or heart disease, mental illness is an illness, and we need to be able to talk about things like that. And honestly, we can cause our own mental illness by not talking about things.
And I think that's partly what happened to my husband. I'm going to just say one more thing. He played football at the college level. So he'd been
Hmm.
playing football since like fourth or fifth grade, and he got many concussions. And that can be a real trauma to the brain.
Absolutely.
I talked to another friend of his who was a football player too, and he said, Jan, he goes, do you think that could have played a role? I go, you know what? I hadn't thought about it, but yes. I go, I really think that affected him.
Mhm.
He just, he was struggling. He was. And he was giving up all the things he loved to do. And that was the hard part to see too. And I wish I would have realized the signals, but I didn't. I just
Mhm.
never thought he would ever do it because we had talked about it. We had talked about, now that's not going to be a way out for us.
Mhm.
Well, apparently he was in enough pain that he did. And if there is any blessing there, I'm so glad he's not in that pain anymore because
Mhm.
it was so hard to see in this man I love. I'm going to still say love because I do. It's not loved.
Yep.
And just knowing he's, and I know people go, oh, he's in a better place. I just think his spirit is the part that goes. So that was always there.
Yeah.
And he had that in him, but he had a hard time
Hmm.
realizing that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he's found it because now we can connect.
Yeah. Exactly. And his spirit is free. And, we're all human.
We
We're
are.
all going through this human experience together. I think
Yes.
that the more we can open up and talk and
Yeah.
share these things, the more somebody else can be helped.
Yes.
And the more that we can help ourselves. You
Right.
talking about everything, I'm sure has helped you. I know that it's helped me
Absolutely.
when I talked about my own experiences with depression,
Yeah.
my own experiences with having suicidal ideation. I know that it's helped me to talk about my mom. It's helped me to talk about being an empty nester. Anything that you go through in this life that
Right.
brings you joy and pain, it's great to talk about these things because when my son was dealing with his own mental health experiences, the fact that I had gone through exactly the same things that he was thinking and feeling,
Mm.
when he finally let himself open up and talk about them, he was afraid that he'd hurt me by
Oh,
talking about it. And I said, I can promise you that there's nothing you felt and feel that I have not felt and feel.
yeah.
And when he started talking about it, he realized that, oh my God, she's not kidding.
That's right.
Because I could even say to him, I bet these are different things that will float through your mind. And he's
Yeah.
like, how did you know that? I'm like, because I've been there.
Yeah.
And so I hate that he has had to have these experiences himself, but I'm also grateful that if he
Oh,
has to have these experiences,
yeah.
he has somebody that he can talk to about it that
Yeah.
literally knows what he's felt.
And I think too, when we go through all of this stuff, the hard
Mhm.
stuff, it really is a pathway to our better self.
Mhm.
And when we discover that, like you said, when we let it go, when we start realizing that it doesn't have to last, because that's another thing I've said is this too shall pass. And I've
Mhm.
been saying this way before I was a life coach, but it got me through the hard stuff, knowing
Mhm.
that it didn't have to be that way,
Yeah.
looking like I know I'm going to get through this
Mhm.
and I'm going to be okay because something good's going to show up. Does that mean good's going to last forever either? No, it's good and bad, but
Mhm.
that's the flow of our life. And when we accept that, it makes such a
Mhm.
difference in accepting that this too shall pass. And that has helped me most of my life. You know,
Yeah.
I don't even remember when I started doing it. I think it was high school.
It's funny that you say that because in high school, I realized one day that I was having a really good day. And I thought to myself, wow, I'm having a really good day because I had such heavy depression.
Yeah.
I always say when I was in high school and younger, I was so painfully quiet and shy. But when
Mm,
I look back at my life, I realize like elementary school into middle school, I was pretty, even though I was in an abusive environment, I was pretty like childlike and excited about life. But slowly it was beaten out of me.
mm,
And I started to get to a point where I was painfully quiet and shy. And
mm.
so I thought that, well, that's just who I am. And I realized, no, that's not who I am. It's that was
Good
taking
for
over.
you. Hmm.
Yeah, it was taking over. But it was something that one day just realized I was having such a great day, but I didn't understand before that moment that I don't experience the good without the bad. And you have to experience both
Yeah,
to really appreciate the good.
you do.
Yeah,
Because if you don't have the bad, how do you know what good is? You know, it's
exactly.
that two ends of the stick, good and what you want, what you don't want. And which one are you going to focus on?
Hmm.
Because if you focus on what you do want, then that's going to lead to that. If you keep focusing on what you don't want, that's when you stay in that loop. You stay in
Yeah.
that stuck spot.
So I'd love to ask you, how did this affect your connection with your children? And how did it affect them?
You know, we were a pretty tight family anyway. And I've been very fortunate that I've had a great relationship with my kids. We've had our ups and downs, of course, but I think it helped us gather together even more. The
Hmm.
day that after he passed, my grandson, who was 15, I think at the time, maybe 14, he had a football game. And it was the last game of the season. And I went up to him and I go, Donovan, I go, you have that football game. Do you want to go to that? He goes, yeah, I still do. And I said, okay. I said, do you want us to be there? And he said, yes. Well, this game was an hour away, but it actually we all got into my big old van and all of us drove to the game to watch him play. He went with his team, but it was kind of another connection thing and celebrating because Mickey loved football and he was so excited that Donovan was playing. And
Hmm.
that right there it just brought us together even more. We decided it was
Hmm.
about celebrating and we had a lot of joy because they won the game and it
Hmm.
was fun. We went out to eat afterwards. I just had a bite to eat and that was really fun too. It was just reconnecting and knowing we were
Hmm.
okay. We
Yeah.
were okay and we could get through this together.
Hmm.
So I'm going to say in some ways it's drawn us a lot closer.
Hmm.
I still, my daughter, because she found him, fortunately, through the fire department, they had a chaplain and they called her that day and they said, Kelly, you have been through a really traumatic
Hmm.
experience. We would need to talk to you. And at first she was resistant. She goes, well, I really can't right now. This is going on. And they're like, we know. But they got her to come and talk to them. And she said it was very helpful because that's what they do for the firefighters, police department, EMTs, all of these first responders. And
Yeah.
they know if they kind of get it right away, it isn't going to be quite so hard because they've had a chance to talk about it,
Hmm.
get that out. So I was grateful for that. And I worked with them too. But you got to do what works best for you.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned is
Hmm.
I did it. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm done because I'm
Right.
not. It's been a heck of a journey and it isn't one I'd ever wish on anybody,
Mhm.
but I'm a much stronger, better person because of it. And now I get to help other people
Yeah.
who've gone through some kind of a loss because I
Yes.
understand it in
Yes.
a really big way. Yeah.
So I found it interesting because the first time I met you virtually through our mutual friend and coach,
Yes.
Lachelle, and I had just started getting to know you a little bit when this all happened.
Yeah.
And I remember Lachelle just telling us that our friend Jan had lost her husband and didn't elaborate in any way. And over time, I learned what had happened. And I had already felt your heart and soul coming
Mm,
through the screen because you can feel people's energy,
you
whether
can.
they're in the room or not. And I had already thought, wow, this woman, I like her. She's got a light coming out of her. And I was amazed at how quickly you came back into the group
Hmm.
and still had this incredible light coming from you
Oh,
and this
thank
incredible joy coming from you after what you had experienced.
Yes.
And I admire that
Mm,
because it wasn't forced, it wasn't fake, it was just who you are.
it's
And to be able to look at that and see what you have gone through, and to see that, of course, you've got children and grandchildren and so many people affected by this situation. And of course, you being the spouse tend to take on the majority of that responsibility
yes.
in a lot of ways. Not responsible for how people behave, but definitely it's a deep,
Yes.
it's a deep thing. And so I love that you have turned this into a beautiful thing for yourself in terms of still being connected with him, still loving him, still feeling him with you,
Yeah.
and it ingratiating itself into your purpose. And
Yes.
so now you help people through grief and loss. And like you said, whatever grief that it may be, whatever loss they may be, it doesn't have to be a death.
Nope.
Tell me about how this became even more of a calling for you through that.
That's really interesting because I kind of fought it at first. I was like, do I really want to be working with people who are in pain?
Hmm.
Because it could trigger. And I have
Right.
found that that's not the case for me because
Hmm.
when I meet with somebody, I prepare myself
Hmm.
and who do I get to be as this person and for this person. And that really helps. Also, the one thing that I really grasped quickly after he passed was you can grieve, but you can still have joy.
Hmm.
They can be there. It's going to be there because it's kind of sits there all the time, but it's getting further back in my back shelf of my mind. And that I'm okay and it'll rise up. I get it. But that looking for those little things, like I said, that joy is there. And I'm
Hmm.
thrilled that I discovered that early
Hmm.
because that's what I went off of was that. And I did stick with the fun. That word just really guided me
Hmm.
because to me, fun and joy are kind of like that. They go together.
Yep.
And that was really part of it. And also accepting that just because something feels bad doesn't mean it is. There is a silver lining out of anything that appears to be bad.
Hmm.
It's part of my journey. I'm going to still bump into things I'm not going to really be happy about.
Hmm.
But now I look at it differently. I kind of greet it with like, okay, what do you got for me now, God? What's my next step? And when I look at it that way, instead of fighting it and resisting it, because what you resist persists,
Hmm.
that's kind of what got me through that. It was
Yeah.
just the acceptance, accepting it. And that's all part of the whole grief journey is acceptance. And that all that stuff though, it's all over the place and it doesn't go in order. It kind of,
Right.
I can accept it and the next day I can be angry. It
Yep.
all can work that way, but it's just
And that's
knowing where you're
okay.
at. Yes.
Having gone through it yourself in such a deep way,
Yeah.
you can and show people that it's okay to have a good day and then a bad day and then an okay
Yeah.
day and accept all of it and
Yeah.
that it's part of the journey. Grief definitely changes us in a way,
It
but at the
does.
same time, now this is who we are and this is
Right.
part of our life experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I kept thinking, what the heck?
Hmm.
What the heck? What is my next step? What is my journey here? Because I, at first, I'm like, can I do this?
Hmm.
Can I do this? And I thought, I don't have a choice. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to get everything I can from it.
Hmm.
And it's kind of fun because I have discovered I really do like myself. I think I'm a pretty fun person. And for a
Hmm.
while there, I didn't. I would
After where
be
you
like,
are.
I was kind of like, oh, am I too much? Because I've got I've been diagnosed with ADHD, and I decided that it was going to be my strength instead of my weakness.
Hmm.
because I have a lot of energy. So that helped me too. It's just accepting what comes your way. And because I remember seeing people looking at me sideways, like, what's she doing? And I'd be like, oh, so I don't really worry about what people think of me anymore. I used to, because what people think of you is none of my business. And I remember the first time I heard that, I'm like, yeah, it is. I want to know what they think. And I thought, who cares? Because they don't know who I am. They don't know
Yeah.
what I've been through. They
And
don't
it's
know
so
my whole
funny because people
story.
are given hypotheticals sometimes, and one of them you hear is, how would you feel about being able to read people's minds?
Yeah.
Would you? And there's a moment in my life that I was like, oh, absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
nosy. I want to know everything. And then I realized I don't want to know any of it.
No. Mm-mm.
It's definitely not my business. And even though there's that nosy part of you that like, I want to know what they think of me. I want to know how they feel about this. You know what? It doesn't matter. That's their opinion. So
Exactly.
how does that matter to you? Yeah.
It doesn't, because, it's a judgment. It
Mhm.
really is when people put something on you like that. And I'm
Yeah.
kind of like, well, you don't know me well enough to really make that judgment. That's something you've met me like maybe 3 times, or maybe
Mhm.
you do know me better, but doesn't mean you know my heart.
And
So,
that doesn't mean you're right.
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Because we're
And
all
now I
flawed
just
human
laugh.
beings. We all
Yeah.
have amazing things and we all have flaws.
Me
And
too.
when I look back at my father, I think to myself, you know what? I feel bad for the child that he was because he was severely abused,
Oh,
but I don't feel bad for the adult that he chose to be.
yeah. There you go.
People ask me, would you like to go back and change your childhood? Well, sure, I wish I had a dad, but
Yeah.
and really I wouldn't be who I am and where I am in my life
Right.
without that. And the same thing with the passing of my mom, where you
Mm.
grow through what you go through,
Hmm.
and people can look at you and say, "How can you be so joyous when your husband died by suicide?" But
Yeah.
at the same time, what are you going to do? Live there and just not live your life?
Yeah.
And if
I,
you can look back, like you said, there are beautiful things that came from it. It's the same thing as when I lost my mom.
yeah.
I learned so much about what I wanted, what I didn't want, what she didn't get an opportunity to do, things that she did that I was inspired by,
Yes.
her choice in the final moments,
Oh,
the grace of her acceptance and choosing. There's so much you can learn from all of the experiences that you go through, even the ones that people look at and say, oh, I couldn't get through it.
yeah. And it's amazing what you can get through if you make that decision that you're going to go through it.
Yeah.
And that was a huge, well, I kind of learned it when I was in some of my training for life coaching too. We went through that. And when I watched this person get up there and tell us all the things that were going on in her life that were hard,
Mm.
and she said, this is hard, but she says, I'm going to go through it. And I got to witness this person doing this. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I
Mhm.
thought, that's what I kept that in mind whenever something would come up. And just by becoming a life coach too, I'm going to say, I think it helped me become not only a better person, but a better educator when I was working
Mhm.
with these kids.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I loved conferences because I got to talk to these children's parents about
Mhm.
all the amazing things these kids can do. I always focused on that. And I'd say, hey, we're a team. Are you willing to do this at home to
Mhm.
help your child?
Yep.
And when they saw that we were a team, it was great. And
Mhm.
almost every parent, and I was pleasantly surprised, was like, my child loves coming to school.
Mhm.
And that hasn't always been the case.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, they were first, second grade, so they haven't had a lot of experience, but they just love coming to school and they love
Well,
your stories.
that's the difference that a teacher can make because I had some great teachers that really, I loved learning. I
Yeah.
loved learning and I loved being around people. So to me, school just came kind of naturally, but I had a few teachers that really helped me
Yes.
see who I was as a person and a student.
Yeah.
And my mom was a teacher, and she ended up a lot of times because she could work well with what they considered more difficult students because she
Yep.
did the same thing. She brought the fun and the magic
Yes.
into teaching, and she had kids coming back to her years later,
Yes.
graduating high school, saying you were one of the reasons that I went through school and loved school. But
Yes.
I had, from one of my sons, the opposite. He loved school. He loved to go to school until he got into fifth grade, and he had some really horrible teachers that
Yeah.
at that time in your life too, you're developing hormones and things are changing, and really, really caused him to start hating school.
Yep.
So teachers can make a massive, well, it's not just teachers, but anybody can make a massive difference in your life if they
Yeah.
just show kindness,
Right.
caring, openness. And that's one of the things that
Acceptance.
I love about life coaching is that I truly believe therapy is a great tool for
Yes.
anybody and everybody. But I also believe that life coaching is something that could be incredibly useful for anybody and everybody because therapy, you can talk about things, you can work on a lot of things that are difficult situations and trauma
Yes.
and, experiences. Life coaching is, all right, we're going to now take your story and we're going to go here forward and we're going to work on changing your brain.
Yes.
And that's why I found therapy at some point finally was not working for me anymore because I
Hmm.
just kept ruminating on the same story over and over. And
Exactly.
I had to move forward from there.
Yeah.
So you have to deal with your trauma. You have to come to an acceptance. You have to become open to that. And then it's time to move forward. And that's
Yeah.
what life coaching does. And it's
And
so,
I love that because you're looking at the future, you're looking
Mhm.
at what you would love. And
Yeah.
when you're in the past, and that's okay,
Hmm.
because you can go through that. That's one of the things I do with this trauma
Hmm.
release I do. And I'm glad I have both of them
Yeah.
because they work together because I am a trauma coach.
Hmm.
And it's amazing how we help them release the emotions
Right.
attached to their
Right.
trauma.
Right.
And when that happens, you can just see them kind of go, you can
Oh,
feel it,
take the
And most
breath.
of it I do online. So, but
Yeah.
I can tell,
Oh, yeah.
like, wow,
Their
you know,
first
yes.
clear breath in forever.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
So
I'm,
beautiful.
yeah, it's a great path, and
Mhm.
I'm very happy that the door's still open for me because I'm discovering kind of where this path is going.
Hmm.
But I am writing a book with a friend of mine, and it's about grief, and it's about her brother and my husband passing and how we came together.
Hmm.
And that right there is, mm, I'm excited about what this book could do, not
Hmm.
just for others, but what it could do for me as an outreach to help
Hmm.
more people.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Love that. That's so beautiful. And I can't wait to get that book in my hands and read
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
hopefully it'll be done. I'm hoping by May because we have a publisher who's
Hmm.
working with us. So
Great.
it's exciting. Yeah, I'm really
Yeah.
excited about it.
Yeah.
So
So turning pain into purpose.
exactly.
Yeah,
It's perfect, isn't
it
it?
is. It really is. So for the listeners who feel stuck in grief right now,
Mhm.
or a very heavy emotional situation, maybe feeling suicidal ideation,
Mm,
or just not knowing what to do with themselves, what's one thing that they can do today to step forward that you would recommend?
mm. So many things come to mind because the first thing is your neurological system is it's not regulated. And
Hmm.
we want to do that. And there's lots of little things you can do to just kind of get yourself out of that so that you're moving up that emotional scale. And it could be dancing, taking a
Hmm.
walk, doing some exercise, breathing, doing some breath work, singing. There's that
Listening to
vibration.
music. Yes.
Yep, music is huge for,
Hmm.
because it's so vibrational
Yep.
when you think about that. And that's what I do sometimes too. I'll be like, oh, I'm going to turn on that one favorite song and just blast it. And I'll
Yep.
dance around the house singing along with it. My cat can hear me and that's it.
Mm.
Doesn't
Yep.
matter. Or just reaching out to a friend
Hmm.
and having a chance to maybe go and have a coffee with them or just meet up with them and kind of share.
Hmm.
So that's one thing. If you feel like you need more help than that, then that might be a time to come in, seek somebody who has been through what you've been through. And that's something I do is offer a discovery session. We could do it by email or by a phone
Hmm.
number, and I can give you that to have them
Yeah.
be able to
I'll be
reach.
adding that to the show notes, definitely.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, we feel an emotion, and in the moment, it feels like everything. It feels like your
Mhm.
whole world, it can feel like your whole world is crashing in on you. It can feel
Yes.
like there's nowhere to go. It can feel like the world is against you.
Yeah.
You can also feel like the whole world is for you. Like emotion is that moment. You can
Yes.
get through that moment. And I
Hmm.
can tell you, I've had to do it so many times where I was just in that moment that I thought I was in the drain and never coming out. And that was my life. And that moment can change. And those things that you suggested, get up and go for a walk, step outside and listen to bird song. There's a study that shows that bird song for 1 minute can change your emotion and put you
Yeah.
in a better mood for up to 8 hours. Nature is
Wow.
healing.
It is.
Listen to that music, which is vibration and energy. Go and sit with somebody and cry and let it out. But
Yeah.
that emotion can change. And when you change that emotion,
Mm.
then you can think differently.
Right.
And that's
When
power.
you, because you're coming from inspired action,
Hmm.
when you're coming from fear, sadness, depression, boom, that you're not thinking right. You're
Right.
going to take action in a way because you are afraid or you are
Hmm.
depressed. And is that going to be a good step?
Hmm.
You're not always rational when you're there because you're dysregulated.
Right.
And I think too, when you become aware of that, it's that awareness of noticing what you're noticing.
Hmm.
Because when I felt myself starting to go down those slippery slopes, at first I thought, no, 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 I can't do that. I don't want to. And then I went, wait a minute, let's get through it. It doesn't have to last long. It could only be a minute,
Hmm.
because maybe I would take that walk then, or whatever it was I chose to do to get myself out of it. And then I could move forward. But the lessons I've learned of things that I already knew, but now I know them. I know how they work, and my awareness of them. This is just, whoa, it just came to me too, that how that was another bonus on this journey I've taken, is that the doing the steps and doing what I said actually works. And that's the cool part, because it's like, hey, it worked. Just do it.
Yeah.
So I'm a fortunate, blessed woman. And I keep that in mind every day when I think about what I'm grateful for, what I
Mhm.
appreciate. And I try to appreciate every moment, because when I stay in the moment, that's when I'm connected the most.
Yeah.
It's a
So
beautiful
you kind
thing.
of just answered my final question that I ask everybody is what does living a life beyond BS mean to you?
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
think it means joy and happiness. It's being connected and being in the now, being present. When you're present, that's when all the good stuff happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard when you're
Hmm.
sitting in the past or you're looking too far into the future, because it's so easy to go to that worst case scenario. So easy. And it's that inner voice. Do you have to listen to it? No, you don't. Just because you have a thought doesn't mean you have to follow through on it.
Right.
You can certainly change that thinking, because your thoughts cause your feelings cause your actions, and your actions cause your results. And if you don't like your results, go back to that thought. And
Yep.
then how did you feel about it? And if it doesn't feel good, huh, maybe I can change how I think about it so that I feel better and I can take that inspired action.
Yeah. Instead of saying, this always happens to me. I'm just
Oh,
somebody who can't do this. I'm just somebody who's stuck here.
yes.
Yeah.
I'm
We
going to
have
give you
so much power.
a little tip there too. Is something I learned was, sometimes I'll slip and say something like that. I'll be like, oh God, this, here we go again. And I'm like,
Mm.
and then I add up until now, because I'm telling the
Yeah.
universe, I'm telling God, yeah, that's how it was, but this is
Mhm.
how it's going to be now.
Yeah.
So
Or
I,
that powerful word yet.
yet, exactly.
I never have good things happen to me. I haven't had good things happen to me yet. I
Yeah,
can't do that yet
yet.
because there's always the option to change and learn and grow.
Yeah, because that opens that door again. All of a sudden it's going, "Ah, I heard what you said. Let's
Hmm. The
get,
door shines the light in.
yep, it does.
So amazing. I want to thank you so much for your time and your
Yeah.
vulnerability and sharing and your power and just your light. I just can't say enough about what a light you are in this world.
Well, I
And I'm
find you are
grateful
very
to know you.
similar. I think that's why
Mm,
we connect so well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
grateful for this. Thank you,
thank you so
Heather. This
much.
has been really fun.
Thank you. And I want to say to everybody, thank you for sharing this space with me and Jan today. My hope is that you walk away knowing that you have the power to choose differently. I want you to
Yes.
go live fully, freely, and unapologetically. Your life beyond BS starts now. I'm so grateful you were here today. Remember, your peace, joy, and happiness aren't found in the BS. They're found in your choices. If this episode spoke to you, please rate, review, follow, and subscribe, and share it with a friend. For ways to connect or work with me, check the show notes or visit heathermcnally.com. Until next time, keep choosing you and keep living your life beyond BS.